So there are three types of runners when it comes to warming up. There are those runners that give it a go, that are not quite sure what they should be doing, but they have the best intentions. And then there are the runners that just put their stuff on and go straight out the door, which is the vast majority of runners. And then there are the warm-up pros who look like an elite athlete warming up as they get ready to go out for their run. So I know that most of us don't have the time in our busy schedules to check the latest scientific evidence on warming up and the best ways to warm up before we get our running gear on and go out the door. So in this video, I'm going to give you the information on exactly what you should be doing on each run and how you should slightly vary depending on what type of run you are doing. So I've worked with over thousands of runners over the last decade to help them warm up properly, to help them cool down properly, and also to help them strengthen and stretch their body to help them ultimately run better. If you feel like you need some motivation, some accountability, some structure to your running routine, have a look in the link in the description below at the free 7-day program and get an insight into what it's like to work with me as your coach. Or if you're on a TV, have a look at runbetterwithash.com. So you've probably heard that you should be stretching before you run, and maybe you don't quite know what type of stretching. There are many different types of stretching, so it can become quite confusing. Now, the first type of stretching that most people think of is static stretching. So when we think of stretching, we think of static stretching, which is holding a stretch for around about 30 to 45 seconds, sometimes longer, depending on what the aim of the actual stretch is. Static stretching is an absolute no-no as a warm-up because it doesn't warm the body up and can actually be detrimental to your performance and can lead to injuries because it causes micro tears in the body. Static stretching is something that we would be using for developmental stretching. So if we wanted to increase our flexibility and mobility over a period of time, if we wanted to lengthen certain muscles and tendons, we would focus on holding stretches in a static position. So what does the science say about warming up? Now, there is a protocol called the RAMP protocol, RAMP, which means we raise, so we're elevating the blood flow, we're increasing the blood flow around the body, increasing the core temperature, getting the body ready for the activity. We're then activating, so we're activating the muscles and the regions of the body, we're waking those tissues up, getting them ready and prepared. And then mobilize is starting to be a bit more run specific, so really starting to focus on the actual movements of mobilizing the body, mimicking the movements that we'll be doing when we're doing our activity, which would be running. And then potentiate is starting to increase those movements that we would be mimicking again to start to make sure that the body is ready to go for our run. So when we're focusing on activating the main muscle groups, we're focusing on activating the stabilizing, balancing muscles, then we are getting the body ready, but it's also essential that we are raising the heart rate, increasing the blood flow around the body so that we can transition into our run a lot smoother, which is ultimately going to help improve your performance. You're going to perform more optimally, and it will help reduce your injury risk because your tissues of the body are ready to go. So there are slight tweaks that we need to make when we are focusing on different runs. So if we're going for an easy run, we can get away with going for a shorter, less intense, and I don't mean do less activity, but we don't have to be as active and sort of ballistic or plyometric focused as if we'd be doing an interval session. So if we're doing it a relatively easy run, we can do maybe a 5-minute warm-up where we're just going through a nice routine that activates all of the muscles. If we're doing an interval session, a sprint session, or a hill session, something where we're going to have to demand high levels of intensity of the body, then we need to be doing at least 10 minutes and we need to be focusing on some intense, sort of a progressed intense workout to mimic again the intensity that will be coming in the main workout. So it's important that we are doing a little bit more plyometrics as we start to getting towards the back end of our warm-up, ready for our interval session. We've been a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more ballistic in some of the exercises, a little bit more springy, so that we can, again, making sure that the body is fully prepared, ready for the intensity that we're going to drive through the body. And then if we're doing a long run, again, if we could give probably like a 10-minute warm-up at least, so that we can transition into our long run a lot more smoothly, we would be then again optimizing our performance. So if we could focus on, again, sort of like the raising of the heart rate, but not, again, we don't have to focus too much on plyometrics and being really ballistic. We can get away with doing slightly less of that, but just really focusing on a quite good activation and mobilization of those muscles, so that when we're going through that longer period, those muscles are fully active and they are fully ready to go for our long run. So the key takeaways really are: focus on a dynamic warm-up, making sure we're getting that ramp protocol in, so we're raising the heart rate, raising the blood flow around the body, we're activating the muscles, we're mobilizing the muscles, mimicking our running, so again, working on specific running type activities or exaggerated movement patterns of what would be running, and then we'll potentiate, so we're starting to increase the intensity and activity of those running type muscles, so that we can, again, transition smoothly into our running. So this is going to help you perform more optimally, and it's going to help you reduce your injury risk, which ultimately, again, is going to help you run better. I do have a running warm-up or pre-run warm-up playlist, which I will put at the end of this video, so you can have lots of variation in your running warm-up and you don't have to think about it yourself. And again, if you need a little bit of accountability, if you need a little bit of motivation, you need some guidance and some structure, and you want to work with me as your coach, I can give you structure through my coaching app, and I work with you directly. Have a look in the link in the description below, or have a look at runbetterwithash.com. But warming up properly is absolutely essential. We need to make sure that we transition into our running from our everyday life into our running much more smoother, which will again make you perform more optimally and help you reduce your injury risk. So don't skip the stretch. Don't have. So in this video, I'm going to give you so when we think of stretching,